Houston's mayor now spending millions to clean up the illegal dumping that's plagued minority neighborhoods for decades. Citizens asking why it took a federal investigation to finally spark serious action. In the wake of a disastrous primary election, Harris County earmarked for a state audit of midterm balloting. Is it necessary accountability, or, as Democrats claim, a waste of taxpayer money? And in the nation's capital, after years of damaging storms, Congress finally takes a major step toward funding the Ike Dyke. I'm Greg Groogan, and welcome to What's Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's greet them. Starting us off, former Houston City Council member Sue Lovell. Next up, Charles Blaine, founder of Urban Reform. In the 3 spot, longtime super neighborhood leader Tamaro Bell. Batting cleanup, Marcus Davis, well-known restaurateur and host of Fish, Grits, and Politics. And closing us out, Holly Hansen, political writer with The Texan. Let's begin.
Is there illegal dumping too much in our city? Yes. Does it pull down communities? Yes. Do we need to find all possible ways to reduce it, eliminate it? Yes. Does it require additional resources and enforcement? All of that? Yes. Okay. But it's not as easy as people would like to think it is.
Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner announcing a multi-million-dollar plan to attack the stubborn plague of illegal dumping. The initiative includes hiring private contractors to collect and haul abandoned garbage, along with enhanced enforcement measures, including additional surveillance cameras to catch perpetrators in the act. The campaign was launched shortly after the Department of Justice announced it was investigating the city for its chronic failure to adequately address dumping in predominantly black neighborhoods.
Whether or not the city of Houston, this administration, is actively discriminating against communities of color. Are you kidding me?
Panel, while the mayor is clearly exasperated, many citizens are asking why it took this kind of pressure and embarrassment from the feds to trigger serious action. I throw that to you, Tamara Bell.
And the communities that they're having this plight and problem with, they have went to the city multiple times. They've called 311 to exhaustion and could get no response. When you see you're getting no action from the people you feel you should get action, you take whatever means necessary. When you all saw that video of children getting off the school bus next to pumps that were much higher than them, 10 feet high, 12 feet high in the air, and you got babies, kindergartners, and you got rat-infested piles across the street from where they're being let out, you do whatever you have to do to put your people and make them safe. Irrelevant to who's in office, it doesn't matter. It is about doing the job of the citizens protected in public safety. This in those communities is a public safety crisis. Not only dead rats and live rats, dead bodies. You cannot allow this to go on and on. And some of those piles have been there for years. As I said, when Gene Locke became the commissioner for Precinct 1 for the first time, county resources were aided to help people in those communities, because when he went over there, he couldn't believe it happened and that it looked the way it did. After that, Cagle started doing it, but it takes a joint effort, and it cannot be just, I'll call us later. That's why they did what they did to get action. And guess what? They got action.
All right, Sue Lovell, in all fairness to the mayor, this problem, this plague predates this administration. Give us some perspective.
Well, it does, and it is a difficult problem. But look, while he's whining about it's difficult, he's been there 6.5 years, almost 7. He has 1.5 years left. I think what happened is, Justice Department said, we're done with your saying you're going to do this. We're going to push you along to do it, because you've been essentially just playing people along, saying, oh, we're going to do something about it, but we're not really doing something. So now Department of Justice is like, yeah, you got 1.5 years, quit whining about it, go out and fix the problem. That's why you became mayor. quit whining it's difficult and figure out a way to get all of this done.
Yeah, Charles Blaine, along those lines, we have money for bands at the airport and a whole range of different programs, but this is a core function of government. Agreed?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it might not be intentionally discriminating, but they're intentionally not prioritizing these concerns and these calls. I mean, I've been hearing about illegal dumping since I got involved in local politics. It's not like it's something new. It didn't just spring up on them. This is something they've known about, and it's shameful that it takes a federal investigation for the city to move, because I bet you if this was River Oaks Memorial, not West U, but Museum District or somewhere else, it wouldn't take as much frustration from the community. It would take a couple of calls and they would have a solution. It wouldn't take a federal investigation to get the city to start moving. So it shouldn't take as much, and we shouldn't accept that it takes this much for these people to get the basic level of service that their tax dollars pay for and that's owed to them. So, I mean, it's just really sad. And so, yeah, it might not be intentionally discriminating, but it definitely is actively discriminating against these neighborhoods.
All right, Marcus Davis, some of the council members talked about blight leading to crime, it all unfolding in these neighborhoods. As you heard about this move by the feds, what was your reaction?
Immediate action after applied pressure proves denied action pre-applied pressure. In short, if you're doing it now, you could have done it then. You just chose not to. When my mama pulled that belt out, man, that house was cleaner than it was when she first left. It's just it's that simple. I could have done it while she was gone. I just chose not to. I chose to do other things. I chose to be focused. I chose to be distracted. And it didn't come to a head until the pressure was applied. So shout out to citizens for applying pressure to government to make them do what they should do already. It is such a shame that we're talking about this, because I'm going to beat the dead horse, no pun intended. We would not be talking about this in wealthy areas of this city or any city around. It just doesn't happen. And this type of neglect is the same type of neglect that led to the cancerous material that was left in Fifth Ward. It is the exact same problem. We ignore those that don't have money. We ignore those that can't keep us in power. We ignore those that can't keep us in office.
Holly Hansen, it bears mentioning this is a Democratic mayor and a Democratic DOJ, or at least under a Democratic administration. Does that factor in?
I think so. You know, the mayor cannot blame this on some right-wing conspiracy or Republicans trying to undermine his administration. These are people from within his own party with whom he has a good relationship for the most part. And obviously he was very irritated, and he put out that statement shortly after the announcement, you know, saying, why didn't they run it by me first, which I thought was very interesting. You know, the other thing is that, yes, this is a terrible problem, and it's great that, you know, it got national attention. And so now something is finally being done. But the suggestion that it's because maybe Mayor Turner is racist is patently absurd. Right. But it also demonstrates that, you know, sometimes too often we attribute to racism what is just, you know, local government inefficiency and local government not focusing in on core services for which they're primarily responsible. I have to agree with the earlier comments. You know, I love to see cultural events and music and and art and all these great things. But if your city's not, you know, fixing the streets, cleaning up these, you know, dumping sites and a slew of other issues, then, you know, they shouldn't be spending so much time in hoopla on these bread and circuses events. We're
going to have to leave it there. Still to come, after a disastrous primary election, Harris County has been designated for a state audit after the midterms. And in our Sunday survey, we're asking viewers if they believe serious outside oversight of Harris County voting is justified. You can vote now on fox26houston.com or use our mobile app and click on Tell 26. We'll share the results later in the show. But up next, Democrats appear to have the votes to push through a game-changing measure to battle climate change. Welcome back. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin has temporarily relaxed his frequent role as Democratic renegade and appears to have given President Joe Biden the slim margin he needs to pass the biggest climate spending bill in U.S. history. Now, the $367 billion energy component of the legislation offers a wide range of tax credits for wind and solar, along with general tax rebates for Americans who purchase electric vehicles. The bill also calls for fines to be levied against oil and gas companies which emit more than 25 metric tons of methane. Other major components of the Inflation Reduction Act, in quotes, include allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices, and panel, wait for it, an additional $739 billion in taxes on corporations and the so-called wealthy. Charles Blaine, eager to get your take on this latest legislation.
Well, I just find it funny that only in Congress can a bill called the Inflation Reduction Act deal mostly with climate change and very little with inflation. And actually, there's a University of Pennsylvania report that came out that said that the level that this bill mitigates inflation is statistically indistinguishable from zero, meaning that it has no impact. And so it's like I just don't understand. And one of the interesting things is, though, that when Biden took office, he did say that if you made less than $400,000, your taxes wouldn't go up. In this bill, it's projected to increase taxes on everyone starting at making $30,000 and above. So, I mean, we've seen this not be the case time and time again. So not too excited about this bill, to say the least. All right, Marcus, your taxes can go up. You're a successful businessman. What do you make of this?
I'm going to concur with what Charles mentioned. I don't, one of the challenges with our government is we take these bills and we want to mash and mesh everything into them all at once, trying to solve multiple problems at one time, which complicates it. And then, that's when we'll go and throw up and say, somebody didn't vote for this bill. Well, that's because it had a bunch of crap in it, right? And I think at some point in time, we've got to begin to just sever these bills, make them very simple and straight to the point. That way, some of the legislators may actually read the legislation that's being put forward. But as far as taxing the folks in America on the heels of the pandemic, on the heels of the highest wage and food costs that we've seen in the last 20 plus years, I'm not exactly certain. I'm not excited about it, and I'm not exactly certain where it gets us as a nation.
Tamara Bell, put your businesswoman hat on, and you're an accountant. $739 billion in new taxes. I guess the Biden administration thinks that people have it to spend. Okay, look, I believe that they saw how hot we were across this nation and said, let's seize the moment, because I don't see how a lot of things in this bill do change. How are you raising taxes on people to make $30,000 because they are not the wealthy? They're not the wealthy. They not even there can shop at grocery stores every week. So I don't understand what the point of this is. All right, we're going to have to leave it there. When we come back, a new political party now emerging for Americans seeking a third path of governance. Welcome back. Americans who are deeply uncomfortable and therefore inexorably unaligned with the often radical positions of both legacy parties are being offered a new, more moderate home. That gathering place follows the merger of the Renew America and Serve America movements into the Forward Party. Founded by former presidential contender Andrew Yang, boasting a broad coalition of former Democrats, Republicans, and independents, the Forward Party says it's recruiting pragmatic, results-oriented candidates and plans to be on every state ballot by 2024. Panel noting that our good friend and colleague Bill King has been an early and significant leader in this effort. Is there room in this country for a third political party? I'm going to go to you, Sue Lovell.
Well, yeah, there's room. Of course there's room. But hey, as Yogi Berra said, this is like deja vu all over again. We've been down this, if you look back in history, we've been down this path and they've never really been really successful. They've been disruptors. They've kind of been able to change the conversation that's there. And I think people want a different conversation right now. And I think people are tired of the different parties fighting with each other and would like people to come to the center and have discussion. I don't know if the solution to that is in a third party. I think the solution is for the two parties to quit the bickering and come together and move this country forward.
Holly Hansen, I guess the difference for me is never before have the radical elements of both parties controlled so much of the agenda. And that's where I think this movement towards the middle, moderation, may have a better chance.
Well, I mean, you may have a point there, but there's always been fringe groups in each party that, have kind of pulled out to the outer edges there. It's really difficult for a third party to gain traction. As Sue pointed out, you can have a third party. We've had them, we've seen them before, but often they just serve as spoilers, but they can help change the conversation to some extent. Whether or not they actually could produce a winning candidate on a national ticket remains to be seen. Once in a while, we'll see an independent be elected to Congress or so forth, but it's pretty rare. And, more power to these guys. I hope they can, make the case, but they've got an awful lot of people to persuade and a lot of tradition that's hard to buck from both sides of the aisle. But yes, I see a lot of dissatisfaction in both the Democrat and Republican Party with some of these extreme positions.
There is no greater or more effective spokesperson for the disaffected, the dissatisfied with both parties than Marcus Davis, which means that this party probably has missile lock on you, trying to recruit you, Marcus Davis. What's it going to take?
Well, what it's going to take is the language that you just heard by my fellow panelists to stop. We keep saying the same thing over and over, thinking that doesn't have an impact. The more we talk about, we can have third party, we've seen it before, but the more we say that, the more we will continue the condition we are in this country. It's not until we stop using that language about the third party being a fringe and they've been unsuccessful. Sue was polite enough to tell us we've seen this before and been down this road again, while suggesting that the two parties work together like we haven't seen this before and been down that road again. We are addicted to this foolishness. We are addicted to this madness. We are attached to this complicated, bipartisan, toxic, cancerous system that we're in, so much so that we can't even pass legislation for veterans while saying we are patriots.
Charles Blaine, you and I talk almost on a daily basis about politics. And I've got to ask you the question. I've asked you the question before. Is there room in your party for you because of the radical component? And so what's it going to take for this particular entry onto the landscape to set in some roots and be a player? Maybe not in this cycle, but the next and the next.
I think it's an uphill battle. You have states that have laws in place that benefit the two-party system and dissuade third parties from forming and third-party candidates from getting on the ballot. So I think you just have a high bar to begin with. But then I think you have the issue that we also just live in a place where we naturally coalesce around two different ideas, and then kind of whichever one of the two of those raises to the top, we go with that one. And so, I mean, I think you might start with a number of independent parties, but then what ends up happening is they form these coalitions with whatever group aligns with them the most, and then you end up with two parties again. So, I mean, I give them credit and I applaud them for trying, and I'm excited to see more conversation being more dialogue in this arena. I just don't know if I think the bar might be a little too high.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Still ahead, as he strongly hints at making another run for the White House, we learn Donald J. Trump is the target of a Justice Department investigation.
Our country is being dealt one historic humiliation after another on the world stage. And at home, our most basic rights and liberties are totally under siege.
Former President Trump back in the nation's capital and telegraphing yet another run for the White House. Panel, that may be tougher than he thinks, given confirmation this week that Mr. Trump is definitely under criminal investigation by the Justice Department for his actions before, during, and after the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Holly Hansen, what's your read on this?
Well, I certainly think a DOJ investigation has a lot more credibility than this January 6th committee, which has been, a lot of partisan showmanship and primetime theater to a lot of people. Even Democrats surveyed saying, it seems like a very partisan impact or effect on the public. Now, whether or not Trump runs, I don't see that, but it's possible that he's got, some hardcore supporters who, look at the way the country looked in 2019 and early 2020 before the COVID pandemic hit. And they say, wow, things look pretty good. The economy was roaring, people had jobs. And, I think that's going to be a big factor. But I think a lot of people within the Republican Party would rather see a different candidate.
All right, who do I go to first? Marcus Davis.
Well, I got to say, respectfully, Holly, this January 6th committee does have a key Republican at the helm of it. So we can't, anybody that's dismissing this as it's just straight partisan thing, they're taking a page from the Watergate hearing 50 years ago. I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it. If you don't believe that we mirror the 1960 whatever Watergate era, go back and take a look at history. We are in denial, and it is all the evidence points to something criminal that took place, and all the evidence points to something criminal that needs some punishment that needs to happen. It's just that simple.
All right, Tamara Bell.
I'm sorry, that was my say.
Tamara Bell, you talked to lots of voters, and I know in this last cycle, this last presidential race, there were those who didn't so much want to vote for Joe Biden, but they definitely weren't going to vote for Donald Trump. Do you think that'll factor into this, who the Republicans pick this time?
Absolutely, because you got to remember now, 2020 election was during COVID, okay? Wasn't pre-COVID. We were in the height of COVID, and he was president. And I'm telling you, you can go back and check. In Fort Bend County, Biden won, but every Republican under him also won, okay? So people in parties can decipher, I'm going to be a Republican, I'm going to stay a Republican, but I don't want you as my president. The same way Democrats may do the same thing. They may look and say, you know what? I'm gonna vote for every other Democrat but the county judge. I don't want her as my county judge. I'll vote for somebody else. That's a good example y'all could use to see that scenario. So yeah, I do believe that they wanted a change. That's why he ain't there.
Quickly, Charles Blaine, we heard Holly say she doesn't think that Trump's going to be the nominee. When is that going to become clear?
I don't know. I've said on the show many times that I don't even think he's running. And I think that's going to become clear much later because he likes being the kingmaker in the party and he likes everyone, coming to Mar-a-Lago, having fundraisers, asking for support for their various races. And once we get another nominee, that stops. And so I think for a while he's going to hold on to that power.
Okay, we're going to
becomes clear when the GOP grows a pair.
Okay, up next. With one party claiming voter suppression and the other alleging fraud, the state of Texas announces it will audit midterm results in Harris County.
Ultimately, the buck stops with me to address these issues and conduct elections on behalf of the voters. And I didn't meet my own standard, nor the standard set by Commissioner's Court.
Former election administrator Isabel Longoria announcing her resignation 7 days after a disastrous primary election during which 10,000 ballots were misplaced, and Harris County was the only jurisdiction in Texas to violate state law by failing to count the vote here within 24 hours. All of that is necessary background for this week's announcement that the Texas Secretary of State has randomly selected Harris and 3 other counties for audit after the midterm election. Plenty of Democratic grumbling over Harris County's chance inclusion in the group. Panel, those objections seem pretty thin given the debacle we witnessed firsthand. And I'll suggest we should welcome an audit as a first necessary step in rebuilding badly shaken confidence in the process, as well as the competence of those in charge. Going to you, Sue Lovell, what's your take?
Hey, what they need to do is do away with that elections commission. They had 2 elected African-American women that were charged with running the elections, who did a very fine job. We weren't audited. We had no problem whatsoever. And why the county judge came up with this idea of just stripping away their power and moving it over from being an elected position to an appointed position, of which a few people get to choose who run the elections, and now they're under audit. That's on them. Do away with the commission, go back, let the elected officials run the election. It was fine, they know how to do it, and that's what they should do.
All right, our viewers are citing on the, I guess, the option of having increased scrutiny and an audit as a means of rebuilding confidence. What do you think of that, Holly?
Oh, absolutely. You know, you'd think that if someone announced an audit, you'd say, in order to rebuild that confidence, come on down, let us show you how efficient and transparent our process is. Instead, we have the county looking at legal action. It's on the agenda for Commissioners Court this Tuesday to see if they can take any kind of action to stop it. You know, in reality, this is the most populous county in the state. It's more populous than probably a lot of Western rural counties combined, and it has a great impact on elections in the state. And so it is proper to scrutinize what's happening here. There are a lot of questions still surrounding the primary election, as you alluded to. And, you know, there is an ongoing audit right now of the 2020 elections, and there were some concerns that were brought forward, such as, you know, people who are not eligible to vote being still on the voter rolls, whether or not they cast ballots, we'll find out in phase 2. But there are a lot of questions about what happened with, you know, some of the money. Let's remember that in 2020, Harris County got these huge multi-million-dollar grants from Mark Zuckerberg and other groups, and we're not even sure how that money was spent because no one has seen a line item accounting of what happened in that election.
All right, Tamara Bell, I want to get your take on this. I mean, I think it's probably a pretty good idea that if we could do it, to audit all elections, you know, some oversight. But give me your take.
I spoke to some people who are at the county, and they very, very much welcome this because they feel like they were slapped out of their positions and somebody was put in who could not count to 10 without taking out their shoes. And so to have somebody like that appointed to a position where you have competency in those positions being done, there's something else to this. Because I agree, remove what the public has elected. That is voter suppression 101, and take from them and put it to a private citizen's hands who wasn't even the top recommended out of the whole list, like number 4 out of 5, and give it to them with no experience. Hell yeah, audit them. All
right, Marcus Davis, last 45 seconds to you.
Hey, transparency is key and improvement is king, right? Why not open up for improvement? Why not let the people see how great you are? You know, as a businessman, I like to go through and audit my team, right? Audit our processes, audit what we've, you know, how we performed on a certain event. You got to do examination of self in order to improve. And when you hold the public's trust, you got to do it twice.
All right, trust but verify. You agree with that, Charles Blaine, real quickly?
Very much so. The county needs to be audited for all the reasons you said. 30 plus hours to finish reporting 10,000 missed ballots. We've had multiple people overseeing our elections. One had to resign because she couldn't do it competently. So why would you not want to audit it? Mind you, the state is paying for the audit. So now Harris County is looking to spend money to fight an audit that the state is paying for. To restore confidence of the citizens, they need to move forward with this audit. It's critically important. The video is a little shady, though, on how they pick the counties. I will say that. But I'm glad Harris.
To be
and you got to watch for part of shit that's going to be at play.
Still to come, Congress pushing forward this week on the long-awaited coastal spine known as the Ike Dyke. But up next, ahead of the coming election, the families of murder victims in Harris County join forces and demand change at the courthouse.
On the day of getting an ankle monitor, he participated in murdering my brother instead. The Harris County justice system is broken. Josh had a right to be out in public and not targeted by violent criminals that Harris County judges keep allowing back on the streets.
Rallying under the banner Stop Houston Murders, family members of those killed in Harris County's crime wave are demanding change via the ballot box. We are now just 99 days away from the November election, and public safety remains the top concern of voters. Panel, in the races to lead Harris County, how big a role will the ongoing crime wave play down the stretch? Sue Lovell, I trust your acumen and instinct on politics more than just about anybody else. What's your take on public safety?
I think it's number one. I think it's the only thing we've continued to talk about, and rightfully so. I think people are to the point where, when are you going to think about us, the law-abiding citizens, the people that are going about our business and doing what we're supposed to do? And yeah, if somebody breaks the law, they have a right to get bail. But when they get bail, they go back out and they prove that they are not trustworthy, that they shouldn't be out in the public, they'll continue to commit crime, then it should be they should go back in and be held until they have their time in court. And if people are upset they don't have time in court, then they should be telling the county to fund the DA's office and fund the judicial system so we can move these courts through. So yeah, people really want to think that their judges are thinking about law-abiding citizens and not about criminals that repeatedly go back out and commit crime.
Okay, Tamara Bell, you know my faith in your instinct is equal to Sue. Is public safety going to be by far the number one issue in November?
Absolutely. And I think people should do their homework, because if you read the statistics of some of these judges and how they have let people out again and again and again, and each time those people get out, they murder again and again and again. You don't need to be in there talking about, oh, it's about black judges and black girl magic. No, the magic, we disappearing. That's the magic. You don't want that to continue. So I mean it. When you go to that ballot, I don't care if they're black, brown, white, Asian, yellow, whatever, I don't care. Read the character of the judge, because this has got to stop. That revolving door has to end.
Holly, you report on this issue. What's some of your takeaways?
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a top issue, along with inflation on the broader economy and the broader ticket. But locally, definitely public safety is going to be a key issue. And, you know, this rally that happened last week is to remind people it's not just the people at the top of county government, the county judge and the commissioner's court, but also these judicial races. We have a ton of them on the ballot. Some of these judges, you know, are releasing people. And let's not forget, we have appointed magistrates, so we've got another layer of bureaucracy there, but those elected judges are ultimately responsible for the appointed magistrates and their decisions as well, and this has just gotten completely out of hand.
Got to leave it there. Still ahead, gift cards for guns, the latest effort to reduce the number of firearms on Houston streets. Is it pragmatic or just public relations? City of Houston and Harris County buying back guns this weekend. Mayor Turner calls the program one component of a holistic program to lower violence. That said, all of the scholarly evidence indicates similar efforts to get surplus firearms out of neighborhoods has had no impact other than an opportunity to highlight gun safety with the general public. Council member and former police officer Mike Knox here.
This is a feel-good opportunity. It's a great way to get people who have guns that they maybe have inherited, that they don't want, to safely dispose of them. That's a great idea. But the expectation that this program is going to reduce violence or crime in Houston needs to be managed quite a bit. So,
panel, we are told something around 800 firearms were turned in Saturday. Simple question, was this effort worth the time and money? And I direct it to you, Charles Blaine.
You know, I mean, I think that'll be seen as we move forward and see what happens with crime. But I think statistics and research has shown that these efforts don't do much in terms of significantly reducing crime. But I guess time will tell in terms of this one. But if people want to show up, 800 people, well, maybe not 800 people, but 800 firearms are turned in exchange for gift cards of this, you know, more power to the people who chose to do that. But, you know, I brought this up at my barber shop earlier last week, and I asked if they would be doing that, and everybody laughed. laughed because they're like, why would you? What is the reason for that? You know, maybe if you're in a home where you're feeling unsafe and someone has a gun and you go and give it so that you don't have it in your home anymore. But if you own the gun legally or if you own the gun illegally and need protection, why would you go and do that? So I still have that question. I'm curious to see what ends up happening with crime in the county, in the city.
Yeah, in that video, I didn't see anything that could make it into Marcus Davis's gun safe. What's your take on this, Marcus?
So as the gun owner, there's nothing that convinces me. As a businessman, just the numbers just didn't make sense. There was not enough money for me to turn in any gun that I had. It wasn't even, it was gift cards. But nonetheless, I checked with the hood NN, the CNN of the hood. There were no fellas sitting around contemplating, man, I think we need to go and turn these guns in, dog. We ain't gonna do that drive-by we was gonna do last week, dog. We ain't gonna rob that convenience store. That just wasn't happening. And if that was not happening, then what was really happening? Pumping circumstance.
Holly, I saw in the, I guess the material they were putting out that they were offering $200 for an automatic rifle, which, you know, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of what's out there. You have to have a federal stamp. They're very rare. It's a machine gun, not a semi-automatic rifle. Your thoughts on this whole thing?
Yeah, that was. I think that demonstrated kind of the naivete or the showmanship of this whole program. You know, to have an automatic rifle, you know, that's legally complicated, and you know, you can go online and try to find one if you can get through all the legal hoops you've got to jump through to get one.
I'll give you $300 for it.
Well, I was going to say you're probably going to pay, you know, $10,000. I've seen up to $42,000 for these weapons, and yeah, a $200 gift card. I doubt that. I'd like to see what they got. Did they get any of these things? I doubt it. I'd be surprised.
Sue, real quickly, good thing, bad thing?
Well, look, here's my concern: is this going to impede in any way them being convicted? And Kim Ogg, the district attorney, did weigh in and say, look, you know, if you have these things in place, but if this stops me from being able to convict someone who committed a crime, then you have to weigh, do you want the gun, or do you want to be able to convict someone who committed a crime? Right. And the sad thing was that both the chief and the county commissioner, Ellis, both kind of slapped back at her like, stay in your lane. But her lane is to get convictions and make sure as the evidence gets to her, if it's good evidence, you can convict someone. So if you're going to do this, you better have a good partnership with the person that you want to put people away.
All right, I don't know if I have any more time, but I'm just going to break. When we come back, encouraging news for the storm-battered Texas coast. Looks like Congress is finally moving ahead on construction of the Ike Dyke. Another huge development out of Congress this week impacting the future of our community. The Senate gave authorization for federal agencies to begin design of a protective coastal spine, also known as the Ike Dyke.
The hard part is going to be now coming up with the funds to pay for this construction, which will take place over a matter of years. And human nature being what it is, it's almost easier to get funds from the federal government after a disaster than it is before one, to prevent one.
Panel, we are talking $16 billion for the Ike Dyke alone and something like 18 years to build. What do you think the chances are it will actually happen? Charles Blaine, 30 seconds.
I mean, I think it's increasing because, you know, even last session when they created I think it was last session, the water district out in Galveston to kind of assist with the funding for this and levy taxes. And now we see the federal government moving. And I think people are recognizing the importance of this and the damage that could come if we get caught without this. Now, let's just hope something like that doesn't happen in the next 18 years. But I will say, if you guys are on social media, Evan Mintz has been the biggest proponent of this project, and I want to give him credit for pushing this thing through.
All right, Holly, you know, if we got a Cat 4 smoke into the petrochemical complex, it could cripple the country for the foreseeable future. This needs to get done. You think it will?
I'm skeptical. 18 years to build, but that doesn't mean that they're going to start tomorrow, right? There's still all the studies that have to take place, and we've already got environmental groups ramping up to oppose it on concerns over what it'll do to the environment. I'm a little worried we'll see another I-45 expansion project type scenario where they spend years and years planning, and then when it's time to pull the trigger, there's all these new concerns. So, if it gets built in my lifetime, that'd be great. But I'm a little skeptical.
30 seconds, Sue.
Well, I was on city council when Ike hit, and I want to say, actually, this idea, God rest her soul, Mayor Lida Ann Thomas had this idea immediately went to Congress and started pushing with this and bringing environmentalists together. So I want to give her due on this idea, and that it's finally moving forward.
It just makes too much sense to get done. I'm kidding, everybody. All right, still to come, never again. America's leaders take a major step to protect against a crippling shortage of computer chips in the future. Welcome back. On a positive note, bipartisan action this week to protect the nation and truly learn a very hard lesson from the past. I'm talking about approval of a $280 billion measure to boost the domestic semiconductor industry and ensure we never again have a crippling shortage of computer chips, paralyzing the supply chain on literally thousands of products critical to our economy and our national defense. Panel, what's your point? I'm going straight to Tamara Bell.
Listen, I want to go back to the last topic on the Ike Dyke. Bill King was appointed by Bill White, and he started that back in 2008. The data that they used to even come up with the Ike Dyke was over 10 years old then. The Netherlands has been doing this for years and years. We cannot afford these kind of disasters. I truly hope they can expeditiously do this instead of 18 years to get this done.
All right. Marcus Davis, your business, like most, was impacted by this crippling shortage of computer chips. You think this is progress?
No, this is not progress. This is evidence of how toxic our political environment is. Think about it, guys. We, the United States of America, allowed more than 80+% of the chips that more than 80% of our products use to be manufactured in a small country that is beholden to another country, China, and nobody said a doggone thing about it. They were too worried about somebody's emails. They were too worried about what the other party was going to do. And nobody was paying attention to the fact that this product, America hinges on this product. We weren't making it. And not only were we not making it, we didn't have control of it. If you bring a product to me as a restaurateur, if I don't have the ability to bake it myself, I'm not going to sell it, because when you walk away, those biscuits are not going to walk away with you.
All right, Charles, 20 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's partially a national security issue, but my other part is I don't think we should be combating China by giving billions of dollars to Fortune 500 companies. I mean, you look at this and it's going to increase it's going to further increase inflation. It's going to make cost of living higher for low and middle income workers. And so I don't see, we need more semiconductor production here in the United States, but I don't know that this is the way of doing it.
Charles, you're absolutely right, brother.
All right. Hey, everybody, I'd like to close with a word of gratitude for an important person in my life. My father, Bill Groogan, left this world Saturday. Coach, teacher, counselor, and friend, he will always be my hero. Thanks for joining us. The conversation continues on a national level next with Fox News Sunday, and we'll keep talking here with What's Your Point Overtime, streaming on fox26houston.com and on our Facebook page. From all of us here, have a safe and healthy week.